Hi everybody, I hope this is working this time. Right, I think I've got it all working better now, so hopefully you see me for a few seconds just staring at the screen, wondering what's going on. That's because I'm trying to work out which streaming system I am in. So now that it's working, everything is fine. So I'll just go back to that, what I was talking about before, and I do apologise for anybody that did come online as I was ranting, but we are back. So that's the excellent thing, and hopefully we will stay here. And I won't mess around with anything that I was messing around with before, because that I think I did something that stuffed up the network just slightly. So I'll try and avoid that. So rejoin. No one has at the moment, but please do if you can. In the meantime, I'll just rant and speak to myself. So this is the item that I was referring to before.
Joining us now is CJ Pearson, RNC Youth Advisory Council co-chair. CJ, it is great to see you again. Rachel Maddow is struggling big time. She seems to think America is living under a dictatorship. Can you help her out?
You know, under a dictatorship, I don't really think she'd be allowed to go in that unhinged rant about President Trump. But of course, you know, liberals make their own rules. They make their own definition.
I don't understand why someone can't go into an unhinged rant. Trump is well known for his unhinged rants. This is who he is. Most of what Trump says is unhinged. So why can't someone from the left have a rant about authoritarianism and how authoritarianism is taking over in the United States and where that is heading? Now, there are many examples of this around the United States. Now, I cited some earlier before this thing fell apart, but certainly another one is control of the media. We're seeing a lot in the United States now where media outlets are feeling obligated to support Donald Trump or to ensure that anything that they're going to purchase, such as Disney and CBS and others, they have to play the game so that they get what they want. And sometimes that means they have to dispense with people like Stephen Colbert because that he is seen as too far left and critical, just critical of Donald Trump. And I don't know if anybody watches Colbert, but I have noticed that his attacks on Donald Trump, now that he only has 10 to 9 months to go, is becoming far more aggressive because there are no barriers now. He can say whatever he likes. He's going to be finished in, I think it might be May, June, somewhere around there next year. So he's now untethered, in fact. He's going to be able to say whatever he needs to say, and he's going to say it in whichever way he likes. And he is. And it's good to see. But people like this dude here feel aggrieved by the fact that the left wing are becoming untethered and can now say whatever it is they've wanted to say but haven't been saying in the past. And obviously, as the kind of aggression that the administration now exhibits becomes more profound, more people would start to stand up against them. And what happens then is that the government then decides to stand up further against whatever it is that they're standing against. And it just becomes this plethora of one side clashing against another until such time something has to break. And normally it's the side that really is looking for the authoritarianistic approach to their administration that will push back as hard and hard as they can. And as they push further and further back, it becomes more and more aggressive. So, and that's where they're heading in the United States right at the moment. My fear is that here in Australia, well, hold on, I'll reframe that. Used to be my fear is that here in Australia, that was also going to be the case. But there's also some information I'm going to share with you in a moment, which will indicate to you that that isn't necessarily the case at all. So I'm going to share with you some of that from a Guardian article in just a moment. But I'll play a little bit more of this lunatic CJ Pearson, who's an RNC Youth Advisor Council and is a co-chair. So he's a young Republican. I don't know what authority he has, why he's on Sky News, but this is the thing about Sky News. They have all these young people on. I think their attempt is to try and attract other young viewers, which is fair enough. But this is their echo chamber now. It's presenting with these young viewers. The other alternative, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation before she fell over, the other alternative are old people. So you've got all these very young people, very old people. In the middle somewhere, you got sort of Andrew Bolt and Paul Murray and some of the presenters doing their thing as well. But we need to be wary that here in Australia, this is not likely to take on. We don't like this idea, but Sky News can't seem to get that thread. They don't seem to understand that this is not the way Australians view the media, even though Sky News, in terms of its YouTube reach, is quite extensive. So we need to consider that. But they're talking to the converted. That's all they're doing. They're not actually getting to anyone else at all, as I will show you in just a moment. But we'll just get back to this particular dude here.
In the same way they can't define a woman, how dare we expect them to actually know what a real dictatorship is, right? I think the only thing Rachel Maddow needs to find is probably a prescription for Xanax, because she needs to calm down. And to be quite frank, this is exactly why no one can take the left seriously anymore. They live in this constant state of just absolute anxiety that it's absolutely not unfounded in any sense or sort of reality. And it's sad.
I don't know. I don't quite know what he meant by it's not unfounded. He should be saying it's not founded in any true sense of whatever. But he's a young dude with a megaphone of some description, I guess. I guess he's got a podcast just like everybody else. But he really he basically hasn't got very much to say about anything. And at this particular point, he's just rambling.
Well, the Howard Stern show on Sirius XM is set to be cancelled. Now, he was reportedly on a contract of $100 million over 5 years. He's previously said that he hated anyone who voted for Donald Trump and demanded that they stop listening to his radio show, and turns out they did. And he also had this charming message to anyone who was hesitant about the COVID jab.
We're going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated. F them, f their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
And here he is interviewing a barely functioning Joe Biden, absolutely gushing over him.
I know you'd be a good father to the country, and I want to thank you for providing a calming influence, an organized administration post-COVID, getting that vaccine out, getting NATO, getting us to feel comfortable, standing up to Putin. I don't know what people are looking for in a president, or maybe it's that people don't feel like they're getting enough or something. I don't know what it is, but I'll give you your greatest hits.
What stands out to me looking at that clip is just how distracted Joe Biden looks there. Remember, we used to see so many images. He just looks so confused.
Now, what we need to focus on there is that Howard Stern was talking about JFK Jr.'s effort now to cancel any mRNA vaccine experiments or development because he doesn't believe that vaccines, that is, JFK doesn't believe that that any vaccines are of value whatsoever. And so, is it JFK or RFK, Robert, or whatever? We know who we're talking about. But and this is another science of authoritarianism, is where you dish out the science and you replace it with pseudoscience or conspiracy theories or whatever it might be. Anything that fits with the narrative that you want other people to believe, because you're the ones that have the power. And one of the things that I think is quite outstanding that a lot of people just don't talk about is the fact that Donald Trump is a man who tells us consistently that he's a stable genius. that there isn't anything worth knowing that isn't known by Donald Trump. That Donald Trump knows everything. He's omniscient. And this continual reference, for example, to his uncle, who was a professor at a university, and how, it's wonderful these genes have been passed down to Donald, is the ultimate narcissist. And, if you want your country to be run by somebody who thinks they know everything but actually knows nothing, it's like the thing that really irritates me the most is this issue around tariffs. Now, Trump has been banging on about tariffs since the 1980s. It's an obsession that he's had, that for some reason this is going to change the United States. And my argument has always been, well, we have free trade agreements. Australia does with the United States, Mexico and Canada do with the US. Europe has them as well, and Great Britain do. And you're going to toss all of that stuff out now so that you can bully other countries to get whatever it is you think that you want, as unrealistic and as stupid as some of the things that you want are. Like he wants to bring back manufacturing back into his country. Well, I've got a flash for you, Donald. You sold out manufacturing years ago when corporations decided it was cheaper to have goods made in China and Japan and Asia than it was in the United States. Blame Nike, blame Apple, blame all of the companies for making stuff overseas because in your country it would have been too expensive. And now he's asking those countries to come back and start manufacturing in the country. And there's some conversation about Apple spending, $100 billion or something in the US now. Who knows what they're going to do? They're not going to be able to manufacture iPhones for the same amount of money that could be matched in China. It just isn't going to happen. The iPhone will cost twice, 3 times as much as it does now. People aren't going to buy it. They're going to buy Samsungs and they're going to buy other products made of overseas. So Trump's delusional. He is a crazy man. There's no other way to describe him. And yet, here we are with people like these people on this Sky News telling us that we should not be kicking back against that people like Rachel Maddow should not be saying what it is that they say, because for some reason, these people don't want to face the reality. And I have to wonder, when does it get to a point whereby people in the United States start to think, well, this isn't going the direction that we want. Goods are costing more. I can't get a job. Unemployment is decreasing. That I can't believe the government anymore because the people that are making the figures and the facts that tell us what's going on in our country, they're being sacked. So where does this go? When do people start to realise? They're already saying, and people are already protesting about the ICE raids and the people that are being pulled off the streets. I've got a story about that later on. So when does it get to this inflection point where everybody starts to say, hey, enough is enough? What are we going to do from this point on? How are we going to deal with this? And my fear is for the US is that when it gets to that point, it will be too late. And the thing for me that I find also interesting is that while this is happening in the US, the rest of the world is laughing at them. And that laughter is a concerned laughter because no one wants to see people in the US suffer. We don't want to see the unemployment rate increase. We don't want to see poverty increase. Housing is still an issue in the United States as it is here in Australia. Your medical system, your healthcare system is stuffed. Always has been. Even Obama tried to repair it. Didn't do a really good job at the end, but he improved it. Now you're having a shot at our system, our PBS system, and wanting us to become more like the United States. Well, that ain't going to happen. And as you push back and try and change the world through tariffs, through PBS, whatever it might be, the rest of the world's going to look at you and think you're wankers. and we're going to have less and less to do with you. In fact, already it's evident that we're looking elsewhere for our trading partners because you can't be relied on. Whatever friendship we had with you in the United States is now gone. It's diminishing. The reason why Albanese has chosen not to meet up with Donald Trump is why would Albanese embarrass himself? Because it is evident that whenever a leader of a country meets Trump, they feel embarrassed, not always because of the stupid thing that Trump says, but because they know he's a fool and that he is inarticulate. He has no idea about some of the things that he says that he does. You know, where he talks about windmills and, you know, how wonderful your country is and that whales get killed by windmills and birds die and all the sort of stuff that he talks about, which is garbage. They don't want to be involved in that. You know, and there was this moment where he talked about the mayor of London in front of Starmer, and Starmer had to remind him he's a friend of mine. Why wouldn't you even know that? And more importantly, why wouldn't you care that you're endeavouring to embarrass a leader of a country like the UK? Because Trump doesn't care. Trump's a moron. And yet people like the one I'm just highlighting on this session is trying to justify why Trump is doing what he's doing when there's no justification for it whatsoever. And people like Howard Stern have decided to stand up against him along with Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel and others, and hopefully that resistance against Trump will continue, because the reality now is that even as fearful as I am that this is going to tip over the edge to total authoritarianism, a majority of the population don't support what Trump's doing. That is a fact. And as he pushes more and more and becomes crazier and crazier, more and more people will see what's happening, even those people in MAGA. The Epstein case is a case whereby we know Trump's involved somehow, we just don't know to what degree, and every effort is being made to cover it up. And people know, even the MAGA movement, on which they voted for Trump, sometimes based just on that Epstein issue alone. So, okay, enough of my rant. Let's move on. So, in relation to this stuff, though, it was happening on Sky, I wanted to bring us to this article. Young Liberals urge Coalition to distance itself from Sky News and blame MAGA Mirage for Dutton's loss. So the Young Liberals want the Coalition to distance itself from Sky News. And so this is a report done by the Young Liberals, incidentally. The Young Liberals want the Coalition to distance itself from Sky News and appeal to voters through a wider variety of media outlets, blaming Donald Trump's style culture wars for Peter Dutton's historic election rout. In a submission to the party's electoral post-mortem obtained by Guardian Australia, the New South Wales Young Liberals division said the fringe right of the Liberal membership had too much influence over policy and campaign media, causing a mirage of the MAGA movement, which had turned off women and multicultural voters. The 33-page assessment handed to the review being led by Liberal elders Prue McGowan and Nick Minchin is scathing of the campaign run by Dutton and his front bench team, describing them as badly outplayed by Labor and out of touch with traditional Liberal constituencies. The document has not been released publicly and was provided by Guardian Australia on the condition of anonymity. Trying to get this right for you, the 2025 election proved that being one of the loudest media voices in the room does not mean voters are listening to you. And this is what I've said about Sky News for a long time. Viewership data shows that most Australians do not engage with overtly political commentary on traditional media, such as evening commentators on Sky News. Yet much of our party's policy agenda and media appearances during the campaign was stuck in a conservative echo chamber. Pointing to Dutton directly, the submission said the parliamentary leader must front up to a range of media outlets, including those not considered traditional friendly to the Liberal and National parties. in the lead up to the 3rd of May defeat, Dutton did the opposite. He was criticised for not regularly confronting the Canberra Press Gallery and dubbed the ABC and The Guardian hate media in the final days before the poll, and clearly from doing any of that, he didn't win any support. The Young Liberals called out senior figures for demonising Chinese Australians, exaggerating and exacerbating division related to the war in the Middle East. This one I find interesting, that the front bench Zintanam Gerard Price was criticised for declaring a Dutton government would make Australia great again, echoing Trump's slogan, just as the coalition was trying to distance itself from the unpopular US president policies and rhetoric. The coalition must refrain from pursuing cultural war issues and respect the intelligence of the Australian people by formulating nuanced, meaningful policy, it said. So, what does all of that tell us? Well, it basically says that the Australian population, the voters, do not want to go down the same path as the United States. That, in fact, there were some statistics that said that only 27% of the population support what's happening in the US. You would have thought that that information would have been enough. But no, it appears that the Liberal Party wanted to side with the media that sides continually with them, and that happens to be Sky News. So one has to wonder the relevance of Paul Murray, of Bolt, of Morrow, of Kelly, of Rita Panahi, of any of them really. What is the relevance that they hold? And I think the only relevance they hold is the number of YouTube people on YouTube that they watch or subscribe to their YouTube channel. They are the people that they get to, and those people in particular are hardened Liberal supporters. So the people they need to get to, which is young people and others, are not tuned in to what they need. But apart from that, the thing that we need to remember is the message that they're giving is not a helpful message. And that comment about Senator Price in particular, saying that it should make Australia great again, bewilders many Australians, because we're a people. For those now, there might be some people watching this who are not Australian. If so, Australians are proud of our country. We're not die-in-the-hard patriots like you get in the United States, where we're continually waving the flag and celebrating what a great country we are, and letting everybody know that we're the greatest country on this planet, and that we don't have a sense of Australian exceptionalism. But we do like who we are, because what we do like about us is that we're diverse. And the fact that we are so diverse gives us a flavour that is worth acknowledging, and which most of us are proud of. The only other area in which we're not proud of is the way we treat Indigenous people, and to some extent the racism that sits in this country. That's things that I'm not personally proud of. But there are other things certainly that we should be and are proud of as well. I haven't got many comments here. I just going to try and put on, I hope I don't stuff this up again. I've brought up the comment section now, so I can actually look at that. Richard's got one thing right. The Liberals learn. Oh, thanks very much, Stuart. So Stuart has put a comment in here, and I'll just bring that up if I can figure out how to do that. So he says, young Liberals Young rich kid libs got one thing right. Liberals learnt nothing. Still arrogant. Born to rule. Big swinging dicks. I like that. Yeah, that's very true. They are. So I just wait. If anybody wants to make another comment, please do so. I know I stuffed it up by getting in and messing up the feed at one point. I do apologise for that. So the other thing that just trying to organise these here. I might just do this one first. So there's this notion also around our PBS system and how here in Australia, for those of you that might come from overseas, we have the pharmaceutical benefits scheme, which means that the government subsidises the most important medicines available to the Australian public. And we have a system whereby we can access those systems through our pharmacies, this results in very low costs for medicines here. In fact, I have heard that our PBS is certainly celebrated as one of the best systems in the world. And I can understand that because it is part of universal healthcare. So, and we do have universal healthcare. Most of us can go to a doctor and not have any out-of-pocket expenses whatsoever. So, and that's the goal of the government, is to be able to make sure that that's increased over time. And it is certainly one of the best social security benefits available to people living in Australia. It's fabulous. So that's what we've got. However, the United States has decided that they're a wee bit envious of the amount of about our PBS and how our PBS runs. And so we in Australia, through I think Kevin Rudd, are probably advocating like hell for the United States to simply back off, go back into your little hole, and don't interfere with our PBS. But they want to, because they want to tariff anything that we send to the United States that is anything, I guess, that is medically orientated, that would normally come from a pharmaceutical company. That's the deal. So, and believe it or not, pharmaceuticals in Australia is about fourth or fifth on the list of exports that we have. So it's an important area in which we are very, very proud of. And it's an interesting issue, isn't it? Because you wonder whether pharmaceutical companies actually do. They feel aggrieved about our system because are they feeling aggrieved about our system simply because they're realising that they could be charging more and they can't, or and I don't know how the system works specifically. I don't know whether the government negotiates the price, which I think they do, and whether or not that price is far less than the retail price that they would normally sell a product for, and what the difference is and how that works, I do not know. Someone might tell me, but in this particular article, so I'll try and shrink that so that we can read it. Australia to engage US lobbyists to defend PBS. So Australia's pharmaceutical benefits scheme is squarely in the crosshairs of the United States Republican senators and the American pharmaceutical industry, who are ramping up pressure on the Trump administration to end what they describe as global free riding on America-funded drug innovation. Fair enough. At stake is the future of the PBS, a system that has long delivered Australians some of the cheapest prices of medicines in the developed world, and which now risks becoming a casualty of a broader US effort to recast global pharmaceutical pricing through trade leverage. in a move that will increase pressure on the Albanese government as it works to shield Australian exports from rising tariffs, US tariffs. 18 Republican senators last month signed a letter to the United States Trade Representative Jameson Greer and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, urging the Trump administration to use trade negotiations to dismantle foreign price controls on medicine. So, I would suggest that the lobbying groups in the United States, the pharmaceutical lobbying groups, which are powerful, extremely powerful, of all the lobbying organisations there are in the US, pharmaceutical companies would be the biggest. That and oil and minerals, I guess. But certainly pharmaceuticals would be up there. So I am convinced that they're concerned that they want to improve their profit margins by having countries like Australia, and Australia in particular, pay more for their products as well. So it's not just about what we export in pharmaceuticals and that being tariffed. It's also about what we purchase from the United States, particularly their intellectual property and their investment in developing new vaccines and other medications. So I'm sure that's an issue, right? But the question is, will the Albanese government bend to the will of the United States around medicines? If they did, because of where the PBS and the healthcare system in Australia sits, and the fact that we cherish our system, to have it cut or have it mean that we're having to pay more for medications would be horrific and would be the destruction of any political party who decided to go down that path. That is just the way it would be. And so, we need to... So they raise another issue here, which I also wanted to discuss as part of this conversation. The Albanese government now faces intensifying pressure on two critical fronts, trade and security, as US lawmakers and pharmaceutical lobbyists push Australia to lift PBS medicine prices under the guise of tariff negotiations. A parallel challenge has emerged in defence. The Pentagon's AUKUS review, spearheaded by hawkish Pentagon official Eldridge Colby, questioned whether Australia is spending enough on its military to justify alliance's next phase. Both disputes stem from the same strategic demand that America's allies pay their own way, whether it's in the cost of medicines or submarines. For the Albanese government, the price of tariff relief may now include concessions on pharmaceutical pricing, just as the future of AUKUS may hinge on a multi-billion-dollar lift in defence spending. So, good old Trump administration. They've caught Australia by the nuggets. And as a result of that, we're going to find that there's going to be we're going to be in an uncompromising sort of position around all of that. So who knows where we're going? Look, I just want to thank those people that have... Milk says... sorry, I'm late. That's okay, Milk. I stuffed up the first effort. So... But what I do want to say, and I'll just conclude now, there's lots of other stuff to talk about, and I'll put that up for another post. What I do want to say is that I plan doing... I'm new to this live feed thing, which is probably the reason why I stuffed it up earlier. But what I want to say to you is, please subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications. I really find that very helpful. Also, if there's a subject that you would like to have discussed that hasn't been, or you want an article discussed or a video talked about, then let me know and I'll endeavour to do that. If any of you at any particular point in time want to come on to my channel and discuss or debate an issue, even if you disagree with me, I'm more than happy to do that as well. So let me know. Let me know what you think about all of that. But please subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications. I really do appreciate that as well. And as I said, I plan to do this on Tuesdays. at about 1 o'clock and Thursdays about 3 o'clock. So keep your eye on those time slots. If you wish to become involved, make a comment and have a conversation with me. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.